Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be here at Aditi. I think we are in one moment together, one moment in the sands of time. So take a deep breath and let's enjoy the next hour together. So when Punya asked me to do this, she said, use personal anecdotes. And it forced me really to go backwards in my life and then forward and then backward again to see what were the learnings I had. I'm not that old, but till this point in my sands of time. So I'm going to take you through some of them. Now, this is me when I was little, and my husband certainly doesn't believe it, but I was very, very shy. I couldn't speak. I hid under my mother's sari. I would cry if you asked me to speak. But I didn't enjoy being shy. It bothered me. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be confident. I wanted to be able to speak. So I would practice in front of the mirror. At every conference, I would raise my hand and ask a question. And I forced myself to push myself into this, doing tech talks and TED talks. And my learning really, when I look back to what I was and to what I am today, is this, that one can change. I think many times we feel trapped within who we are and what we are, especially when we're young. But if there's another version of ourselves we want to see or be, it is possible. Learning number 2, 1999, we moved back from the US, well-qualified doctors, came to this beautiful city of Bangalore and could not get a job. We had no intention to be entrepreneurs, but no job. What do? You try something. And so we had a startup and started reporting scans for US hospitals, set up teleradiology. It did okay, branched into clinics, and finally formed the Telerad group. But one of the things we felt was that we had not had an opportunity when we came back. And so now that God had given us this entrepreneurship and we had companies, we didn't want to poach people who had jobs, but we wanted to give people who didn't have a job an opportunity. And for us, I think I would say the greatest part of entrepreneurship has been giving those jobs. So this year, we just crossed 1,000 employees, and it's been an amazing journey to be able to really do that for someone else. And I think my learning was this too shall pass. So many times when life gives us lemons and miserable times and all doors seem shut, doors will open. Something else will happen. And I think it's that hope. And of course, you have to keep knocking at them, but that knowledge that this won't last forever. The darkness doesn't last forever. And good things do come your way. Okay, learning number 3. So then we finally got, I finally got a job. I was running the department at a heart hospital at Narayana in Bangalore, near Electronic City. And one of the things I felt that I had been very blessed with was an education in the US at Yale, and the teachers there taught me. And I said, if I can just make the doctors in India that much little better, I would be giving back. And so I started teaching. I started a fellowship, started getting postgraduates, and I would do rounds and teach all the time at the hospital. And at conferences, and we all medical people have our conferences, some of the docs would ask me, the other postgraduates said, ma'am, we heard you teach and we can't attend your classes. How can we attend them? And this was 2010, so this was before online and Zoom and the ability to do it. So in 2010, I started an e-teaching program, teaching postgraduates across India. And I've been doing it from then forever. It seems like 15 years of running that program and just running it. And last year, they made me the president of the Pediatric Cardiac Society of India. Now, my learning from this journey was that give your best to whatever you do. So for me, I am teaching. It's not that I expect anything at the end of it. I just wanted to do my best by those students around me. And if good things happen, great. If they don't, just the act of giving one's best is sometimes enough and is sort of inspirational to keep going with it. Okay, lesson number 4, I think I'm on. So I told you, couldn't get a job, then became entrepreneurs, and then I was in this heart hospital. And I realized that in India, a lot of patients come to the hospital for everything. And you don't need to go to the hospital if you have a cold or a cough or a fever, or even if your little toe is fractured, you don't need to sit there for 6 hours waiting to see a specialist. And so I set up one clinic in Whitefield and ran it for 10 years. So we're very, very boring entrepreneurs, as you can see. So 10 years of running this clinic. But the reason was we had never run a clinic in India. So, how do you get doctors? How do you keep the doctors? How do you get good doctors? How do you keep good doctors? What do patients want? How can you make sure they get the attention they need? How do you ensure the doctor didn't make an error? What systems do you have? It took a long time to figure out what is a community clinic and what does it mean and what does it look like. And so we did this for 10 years in Whitefield, and after 10 years started scaling. After 10 years started growing it, and now we have over 45 clinics, one in partnership with an Aditi mom. And I think my learning from this slow burn journey has been this, that success needs patience and perseverance. I think in today's day, when everyone thinks of startups and raising funds and unicorns and billionaires, and we want it quick and we want it now, in reality, success is just lots of little things over many, many years. And it needs a lot of patience. It needs pushing through those times. As one musician said, it took me 20 years to become an overnight sensation. And I think that, for me, is what success is about putting in that work, and it does eventually come. Okay, lesson 5. So I was headhunted. They have these headhunters for the students, and they're guys who go and find people for positions, who called me and said, look, we're GlaxoSmithKline, they're looking for a medical entrepreneur, someone who's, can be on the board. So I'm like, what does a board member do? I had no idea at the time. And they said, you just attend quarterly meetings, you listen to the financials, you give some strategy, and that's what you do. I said, okay, pharma company, I'm a doc, this makes sense. I accepted. So I get on the Glaxo board. Now, once I was on the board, I realized they send you these board minute agendas and things to read. So I started reading. I started reading the agenda notes. I would go prepared to the board meeting. I would ask questions. I would listen. I wasn't on my phone. I would listen to what they were saying. I would try and give valuable advice in my head. I would try and give advice. And I was engaged in that every quarterly meeting. So 9 months into this, I get a call. The board chairman was the MD of HDFC, which is India's largest private bank. And she calls me and says, Sunita, I want you on the board of HDFC Bank. And I'm like, Renu, I don't even know finance and I'm not a banker. And she's like, it doesn't matter. We have bankers in the bank. We don't want a banker. We want someone who will come and, give us out-of-the-box thinking and give us some just a different way of looking at things. And so I joined the board of HDFC Bank. And my learning from this is really a learning that when given an opportunity in life, add value. And many times we want to add value only if we're going to see what the outcome of our time will be. But I believe that if we're given any opportunity, small or big, it doesn't matter. If we add value, it can lead to other things. It may not, it may. But just that ability to kind of contribute to whatever opportunity we're given. Okay, I'm losing track of lesson number, I think it's 6. This was 2004. We did a carnival in our neighborhood in Whitefield, and we raised 15,000 rupees. So everyone was like, okay, what do we do with this money? So there was a government school in Tubarhalli right across from our community, and we said, okay, let's put up a playground there. And we put up one playground. When we put up this playground, it was incredible to see the faces of the children. These were poor kids who didn't have access to playgrounds, and our kids were well off. They were in a community. There was the club. There was their private school. And it struck us that, oh my God, these kids don't have access to a slide, something as simple as that. So every year we'd put up a few playgrounds. We would just, we had some extra money, we would put up some playgrounds. So 2024, how many playgrounds do you think have been put up now? Any guesses? So we've reached 650 playgrounds. And I think my learning from this was, it's okay to start small, and start small. But once you start, just keep at it, little by little by little. And before you know it, that very small giving that we do becomes something much larger than ourselves. So I think that whole idea of persistence is also persistence in giving. And it can be small amounts. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be as little as smiling at the security guard on the way out. But just starting to give and continuing that for a long, long period of time. Okay. This was, now I am taking you back to before we couldn't get a job. So stay with me on these stories. So this is now 1992. We're in America. We are at Yale. I want to do cardiology. I was doing pediatrics. I was studying to be a pediatrician. I wanted to do pediatric cardiology. They had already filled the slots at Yale for that year because I applied a little late. So I was like, okay, I was thinking about what should I do. And it was Friday night. I was in the ICU. And Dr. Lister asked me, what do you want to do when you're done with pediatrics? And I said, you know, I really want to do cardiology, but there are no slots at Yale, and I'm getting married, and my husband's coming to Yale, and I don't want to leave New Haven. So maybe I'll just work and I'll reapply. Monday morning, I get a call, Dr. Kleinman, the head of cardiology. He says, come and meet me. And he says, Sunita, George talked to me about you. We're opening up a slot. So instead of 2 fellows a year, which they normally had, they had 3 fellows my year. So I finished, came back to India, you know the rest of it. Now 32 years later, we're talking about 2024, and this is Dr. Helen Brand, who was my professor then. So last year, I was blessed to be able to, along with my husband, do an endowment at Yale for global health innovation for any Yalie who wants to work in the field of global healthcare. And it was so satisfying for us to be able to go back and give that to our alma mater. And my learning from that is, don't forget those who took a chance on you. I think, you know, so many times in life we are rushing forward, we forget to look back. And when you're looking at the sands of time, look back. Who was there at the beginning? Who was there who took a chance on you? Who helped you when the chips were down? And don't forget them. And if you can give back to them, or give back to something related to them, or just give back, then do it. And it is, I think that they say when you give, you feel happy, you never get depressed, and it's truly just an antidepressant in itself. Okay, I shall end with something personal. So these are my kids when they were young, a long time ago. And that's me with my patients at the hospital. And I loved my kids, but I also loved the patients at the hospital. And for many years, I chose the patients at the hospital, the kids at the hospital. And one day when my daughter was 7, she asked me, she said, why are the kids at the hospital more important than me? And it was one of those moments when you sort of look inside, and you have to look inside. And I looked inside and I was like, she's right. And I had not given her much time. I used to leave home at 6:30 in the morning, come home at 10 p.m. I was just blessed. I had a very supportive husband. I thought that was enough, that she had daddy, but no, she wanted mommy. And so I went to my boss and I said, boss, my kids don't know me. So he said, don't quit. What are you going to do? You go home every day at 4 o'clock. I said, I can't go home at 4 when there's a clinical, you know, a whole outpatient line outside. I said, give me Wednesdays off and Saturday afternoon. So I started taking Wednesdays off. I would drop them at the bus stop, pick them up. I was that mom, take them for bike rides, you know, sit with them and watch them do their homework. And just that one Wednesday off and one half a day Saturday. A year later, I asked Alicia, I said, how are things now, sweetheart? She said, you know, now Monday, Tuesday, we don't mind because Wednesday you're there. Thursday, Friday, we don't mind because Saturday you're there. And earlier there was darkness and now there is light. And I think my biggest learning for all of you and for me was this, that in the quest for success, don't lose the ones you love. And I think many times we're rushing, we're in a hurry to succeed, to do well, to make that money, to get that promotion, to make our company bigger. But I think remembering the ones who were there in the beginning and remembering the ones we love is so important to keep that sort of in mind as we're rushing along our journey. And so I started doing that. I started taking them. I used to do a clinic once a month in Bijapur, which was in the north of Bangalore. So I would take them on the bus with me. Summer holidays, they would spend outside the cath lab. I'll be doing my procedures. I'd have toys in the cath lab. ICU rounds, they're sitting on the chair. I put a little surgical scrub and take them around in the ICU. So I started spending as much time as I could. And my learning from that really was this, that when you decide to spend time with the ones you love, you will find a way. And so really for all those kids out there, go home and kiss mama, papa, and vice versa too. And I think just finding that way, because as we look back, as I look back on kind of the sands of my time, I think I am so grateful that my daughter taught me that lesson when she was 7. And I made those changes in my life. And I didn't have to give up my work to be with her. And I could do it as long as I was mindful that I had to make time for them as well as the work and my other purposes in life. So I will end with that, at the end of life, I think, and this, I really enjoyed this topic because you all made me think, because I was thinking, when I'm dying, what's going to be important to me when I look back on the sand and the deserts of time? And I said, at the end of life, this is what I want to make sure, at least, that you have created moments and memories with those you love and with anyone else, and just experiences, but a lot of memories and a lot of moments. Make sure you've created some impact somewhere, for someone, for something. Given the best to whatever you set out to do, whatever it may be, whether cooking, whether art, whether setting up a startup, whether being a mom or a dad, whatever one we decide to be, give our best to it. And finally, have nothing to regret. Do right by all around you. Thank you very much.